Trump has shaken up the box once more by talking about taking over Gaza, moving out the Palestinians, raising the rubble, and redeveloping it as an American project. Now, because the Israeli Palestinian dispute thing is so incredibly politically charged, especially now, it's important to understand my personal take of the whole situation so you understand my leanings. Now, I think both sides have legitimate land claims. Both sides have legitimate grievances. Both sides have good historical claims. Both sides have committed unspeakable atrocities against each other. Both sides have reason not to trust each other. Both sides have legitimate reasons to be in a state of war with each other. I don't recognize either one of them as having a God given right to the land. From a grievance, claims, and history point of view, both sides have legitimate reason to fight each other to the last man. Deep in my heart, I really don't care about either side. From a rational point of view, war diminishes the prospects of everyone in the world. So if there were a way to end it, that would be good. I also stand by an earlier assessment. I think the closest historical context to this situation is the American West and the American Indian Plains Wars versus the US government. The cultural divide and historical hatreds are so great that the only way this ends is with the total defeat of one side, uh, either via absolute cultural capitulation or extermination. There is no scenario where the Palestinians win such a conflict. So the fight continues indefinitely or until the Palestinians quit the fight at whatever terms dictated to them or when they die. The alternative is to expect that the Israelis will suddenly show their better nature. I don't actually think it exists. So, is taking over Gaza and developing it as some kind of quasi American territory what Trump intends to do? I don't think that's entirely true. Most likely, this is an opener for negotiations. It's to force a lot of reluctant people to come to the table and solve the problem. People who have not wanted to deal with the situation in the past. So, possible alternatives in play might be trying to get a voluntary dispersal of the people who want to leave the area, basically make it less crowded, less problems. It could be to try to draw in an international Arab peacekeeping force. It could be trying to get people to sign on to an international rebuilding project. The big issue is that Palestinian relocations in the past have gone very badly. Look to Black September in Jordan, where Palestinians actually attempted to topple the government there. And really, it permanently set Jordan back as a nation. Look to Lebanon, where they heavily contributed to turning it into a failed state. And then look at Egypt, which controlled Gaza until 1967. When it came to negotiating its return, Egypt declined to take it. The point being is the Palestinians are a political hot potato. Now, Trump attempted to fix this issue during his first term. The deal was that the Palestinians would have to acknowledge the existence and sovereignty of Israel. Current Israel holdings in the West Bank would be recognized. Gaza and a large portion of the Negev would be opened to the Palestinians. A massive international investment project would build Gaza and Negev infrastructure, irrigate the Negev, build a world class port facility in Gaza, build secure highway and rail tunnels underneath Gaza and the West Bank, and also linking up the various sub portions of the West Bank. And the plan was rejected. Even though they would gain land, it was less than the land they had before 1967, and they refused to recognize Israel. Israel approved the agreement, but to be fair, probably only because they knew the Palestinians would reject it. That said, it was probably the best deal the Palestinians were ever going to get. It's possible Trump has in mind to re-offer this deal or some version of it on this go around. That we still don't know. So what happens if everyone just kind of balks at negotiations? Trump's basically trying to put a party together, and what if everyone says, nah, we still don't want to play in this game? Well, that puts Trump in an interesting position to put up or shut up. Then what happens? Well, I suspect that when dealing with Trump, if he actually makes a threat, I guess, if you want to put it that way, I suspect he goes through with what he said. Now, there's a group of people I like to call the Kumbaya libertarians. And mind you, I'm just as much of a peace guy as any other guy in the libertarian movement, but some of these guys are kind of one issue, and one issue people often lose their minds on things. And this group of people is suggesting that if somehow the United States was involved with the Gaza Strip, it would be like Iraq all over again. I'd like you to look at this little map I threw up here alongside. Okay, if you can see that tiny little thing that almost looks like a lake in the middle of Iraq, that's actually Gaza superimposed on Iraq. Iraq is 1,218 times bigger than Gaza. Okay, if you're inferring that going into Gaza is going to be another Iraq, you're just out of your freaking mind. You're an idiot if you say that. Please look at this and just think it over. Gaza is secure on all of its land sides and has a big open Mediterranean coast. Essentially, it was an outhouse in the sand before this started. Now it's a demolition site with no food, water, or medicine. Now, presumably, some countries will be willing to take Palestinians either permanently or temporarily. I think some portion of the population will happily leave if given the opportunity. Some will leave just to get basic necessities. Uh, and I'm not suggesting that this is a good turn of events. I'm saying if the United States followed through, this is what's going to happen. Every person out of there becomes one less security risk they have to deal with, one last bit of collateral damage they have to deal with. A lot of the agencies that give most of the support to Gaza are in the process of being shut down due to the current U.S. AIDS fiasco. A U.S. operation would be able to shut down all incoming aid. Gaza has no ability to produce food. It only has what it's stockpiled away. It barely has the ability to produce water. In short, the military capacity would collapse to a point where there were so few fighters left that the security operation would be minimal. Trump said no U.S. soldiers would be on the ground there, and there wouldn't need to be. Any kind of mop up at that point could easily be done with drones and Israeli forces. So, a really strange wild card comes up in the form of Indonesia. Uh, I don't think this is going to happen anymore, but a few days ago, this is something that popped up as a possibility. Indonesia taking a lot of the Palestinians. It sounds like they're more interested in just taking a small amount. But just to play with the scenario a bit, Indonesia, landmass wise, is about the size of Mexico and is only about 45 to 48% occupied. It's a Muslim majority country, uh, tropical waters, good fishing, lots of rain. In all honesty, it would be a great place for Palestinians to go to for multiple reasons. One, they would probably be happier and peaceful amongst fellow Muslims. Being far away from the Middle East would get rid of their urge for mischief in the area. And also being away from the Israelis wouldn't be screwing with them either anymore. They would probably, in the long run, end up wealthy and prosperous. But I don't think that's going to happen. But it's kind of interesting to throw the idea out. Uh, Who knows? It could come back into play if the president of Indonesia thinks it through some more. Now, one thing people are wondering is, well, what benefit is it? Let's say this goes through again, which I don't think it will. Whereas the United States is like the controller of Gaza. Well, what it does is that would give Israel political cover. Even if Israel was basically doing all the security and all the hard lifting to clear the area, uh, the problem is it would be politically undigestible for that region. The United States would be a little bit more acceptable if they try to turn it into some kind of, at least as a cover, kind of like an international zone. Which, interestingly enough, that's kind of international areas of Israel and Palestine have been proposed pretty much since its beginning. So the people who are out there, and I see a lot of them going, "Oh, this is just a complete continuation of neocon stuff. This is from the 19. Nothing's changed since 1990. It's all the exact same stuff." God, you guys sound stupid. I mean, you literally sound like the righties who are out there saying, "Oh, Putin and Russia, that's the Soviet Union reborn." You can just tell you guys aren't following what's going on. This is so much different. So an incredible amount of things started changing with Trump's first term. Essentially, you saw people in the establishment of the United States starting to kind of coalesce around the idea that the old neoliberal order wasn't working, that it was essentially reaching its end. And a beginning of a different thinking process started coming online. That's where the Abraham Accords came into play in the first place. Uh, Essentially, what you have now is a continuation. That group that wants to alter the neoliberal order to something else is now growing. They're not completely in control, but they are a growing force. They're shaping this. They are not neocons, but their new order requires a different kind of Israel and a different kind of a group of Arabs in the Middle East in order for this to work. A functional terrorist state cohabiting with Israel is not compatible for the pivot that's going on in the Middle East. Ultimately, we're going to have to see how it plays out because this is a complete wild card. But it isn't going to end up with us singing John Lennon songs around a campfire, and it isn't going to go back to the way it was. I'm going to post a link to some of my earlier things on Israel, uh, just in case someone goes, okay, what exactly are you talking about in terms of how things are viewed? Uh, Get you a better idea on that. All right. So, in the comments section, what do you think? Is this just the opening to some kind of negotiating gambit? Do you think uh, Trump actually has a plan for going through with this if for some reason nobody bites on his idea to basically get around the negotiating table? Uh, do you think I have it completely wrong and basically some people are suggesting that Trump is like some kind of puppet of the neocons or puppet of Netanyahu or whatever? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you don't regularly watch my videos, check out my other titles. I'm sure you'll find stuff that you find interesting. Please consider subscribing. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.